Hello and welcome everyone to today's presentation, which is about simple tenses: present simple, past simple, and future simple. Let me share my screen and take you through the slides. Okay, so starting with a present simple. The concept of the present simple tense is present facts, habits, and regular actions. For a fact, for example, I work at a law firm. I catch the train to work every day, that's a regular action, and I usually leave home at 8 a.m., it's a habit. Now, the main thing we're going to look at is formulation, because although the name is present simple, the formulation is quite tricky. So starting with positive sentences, as we have just seen with the pronoun I, and also with the pronouns you, we, and they, we just use the base verb. So I work, I catch, I leave. But when we use pronouns he, she, and it, we do need to add an S to the base verb. So he, she, it is works, catches, and leaves. She works at a law firm. She catches the train to work every day. She usually leaves home at 8 a.m. Now, the first thing that you notice is that there are three different ways to pronounce the S. With work, we say works. With leave, we say leaves. And with catch, we say catches. So the potential traps in formulating the present simple tense in the positive sense is either forgetting the S with he, she, or it, or mispronouncing the letter S. Now, one important thing to remember is that with pronouns, it's relatively easy to decide if we need an S or not. If it's it, or he, or she, we know very quickly that we need to put an S on our main verb. But it gets more difficult with nouns, as we need to decide if the noun is singular or uncountable or plural. And the common mistakes that I hear are the following. For example, people, many people. The word people looks singular, but in fact it's plural. The pronoun for people is they. So I often hear many people knows, and you shouldn't say that. It's many people know this. Or news. News looks like a plural word, but it isn't. Actually, it's an uncountable and singular word, and therefore the pronoun for it is it. So you need to put an S on your verb. So not news circulate, but news circulates fast. Right, that's for positive sentences. Let's look at negative sentences. It's still in the present simple tense. Now, when we want to create a negative or a question in the present simple tense, we have to bring in what we call the hidden auxiliary verb, the hidden help verb, do. So for I, you, we, they, it's do not plus the base verb, but we often contract that to don't. So I don't, we don't, they don't. And with he, she, it, remember that S that we put on the base verb? In the affirmative, in the positive sentence, that S comes and attaches itself to the do, to the auxiliary. So with he, she, and it, we get doesn't, does not, but contracts to doesn't. So it's I don't work at a law firm, but she doesn't work at a law firm. So obviously there are three traps you need to watch out for. The first one is not using a help verb. In English, you cannot just put the word not next to the verb and say, I not live here. You do need to bring in the hidden auxiliary. I don't live here. The second trap we can fall into is using don't with he, she, and it. Very common mistake. So don't say he don't live here, but he doesn't. The S needs to be present on the help verb. And the third potential mistake that I sometimes hear is using doesn't, which is great with he, she, and it, but keeping the S on the main verb and ending up with a sentence like he doesn't lives here. Now you have the S for he, she, it twice. You need to avoid that. Only once, and because it's negative, that S appears in the auxiliary. He doesn't live here. Now, looking at the questions, again, we need the help verb, the auxiliary verb do, with I, we, are you, we, and they, and then the base verb. And of course, with he, she, it, the auxiliary is does. And your question can be in the positive or negative. So you can say, do you work at a law firm or don't you work at a law firm? Does he work at a law firm or doesn't he work at a law firm? And like with negative sentences, there are three traps we can fall into. The first one is not using the help verb and just using our intonation to ask a question. You live here? That is wrong. You do need to bring in do. Do you live here? And the second one, similar to negative sentences, do he, that sounds really awful. You must bring the S and put it on the auxiliary. Does he live here? And again, using does and keeping S on the main verb. Does he lives? Does he live here? Right. One last thing potentially about the present simple tense is there are two verbs that are irregular for the present verbs, and that's have and be. Have is are, you, we, they have, and the negative don't have, but he, she, it, we don't just put the S, we don't say haves, but has, so it is irregular. He, she, it has, and negative doesn't have. Be is completely irregular. For all the pronouns, it's different. I am and I am not. He, she, it is and isn't. And we, you, they are and aren't. Right, we can move on to the past tense now for both concept and formulation. The concept of the past tense is an action that was completed at a specified past time. That's quite simple. Formulation is the same for all pronouns. For example, after graduation, I worked at a law firm for 6 months. He caught the train to work yesterday. We returned home at 8 p.m. last night, and she visited us 3 weeks ago. These are examples of completed actions at a specified time in the past. So, again, you notice that there are two types. There are regular verbs and irregular verbs. And most verbs are regular, which means we just take the base verb and add ed to them. Worked, returned, visited. But a lot of common verbs are irregular, so you do need to review your irregular verb list regularly. So, for example, be, two forms in the past, was and were, have, had, and catch, caught. So, again, you notice that there are three different ways of pronouncing this ed, the regular verbs. With work, k, sound k, it's worked. With return, sound n, it's returned. And with visit, sound t, it's visited. So again, the potential traps when we formulate the past simple tense is either adding ed to an irregular verb, saying things like catched or teached instead of caught and taught, and mispronouncing the ed. Okay, let's look at the formulation of negative sentences in the past simple tense. Thankfully, all the pronouns are the same. And this time, our hidden help verb, our hidden auxiliary verb is did, the past tense of do. So did not, which contracted in its contracted form, becomes didn't. And then the base verb. For example, after graduation, I didn't work at a law firm. He didn't catch the train to work yesterday. The traps, now here we have two that we can fall into. The first one is, as always, not using a help verb and saying things like, I not worked in a law firm. You need the auxiliary. I didn't work in a law firm. And similar to the present simple tense, keeping the main verb in the past after didn't. He didn't caught. It's he didn't catch. Once you have used a past auxiliary verb, past help verb didn't, your main verb is now the base verb. You do not put that in the past as well. Right, so let's look at question formulation in the past simple tense. Did, of course, with all the pronouns, and then again the base verb. And again, the question can be in positive or negative. Did you work or didn't you work at the law firm? Did she catch or didn't she catch the train? So similar to negative sentences, two traps, not using the help verb, saying things like you returned at 8 p.m., using your voice, try to avoid that, use the auxiliary. Did you return at 8 p.m.? And keeping the main verb in the past after did. Did she visit? No, did she visited? Okay, I think that's quite clear for you now. On to future simple tense. The concept of the future simple tense is, again, like the present simple, a little more complicated. There could be different concepts. For example, we use it for a decision at the time of speaking, for predictions, and also for future possibilities. Formulation is the easiest because we can see the help verb, the will auxiliary, the will modal verb is already in the tense. So, for example, decision at the time of speaking, could I speak to Sally? Sure, I'll get her. Prediction, I think he'll be happy with our proposal. Possibility in the future, I'll call you if I need help. So these are the concepts, different concepts. Now let's look at one note that you have to be careful with. You may occasionally hear shall instead of will with the pronouns I and we. So you may hear I shall see you later, or we shall see you later. It's correct, but shall is more formal than will and can be inappropriate in some occasions, in some situations. So I'd recommend that you stick with will for all the pronouns. So that's the affirmative. Also, just to mention, the only potential trap, because it's easy to formulate, is putting an S after will, like with he, she, it, saying, I think it will start to rain. It will start. No S after will. Negatives and questions, simple enough. You see the auxiliary, you see the help verb will. So for negative is will not, but we always contract to won't when we speak. And also the question starts with will. Will, all the pronouns, and then base verb. I hope it won't snow tonight, or will you stay home if it snows? Okay. The two traps to watch out for. The biggest one is, again, the word order of the question. So avoid saying things like, she will remember it, using your voice to make your yes-no question, to formulate your yes-no question. You start your question always with the auxiliary verb, with the help verb. Will she remember it? And the other complication that can arise is the pronunciation of won't, because it sounds very similar to these two other words, want and won't. So you do need to practice the difference. The only difference is in the vowel sounds. I will say the three again. Won't, want, won't. Right, that needs practice to differentiate between these three very similar sounds. Right. The last thing I'd like to mention is WH questions. So far, all the question formulations we looked at were yes-no questions, starting with the auxiliary. Do you, will you, does she, etc. When you have a WH question, where, why, when, etc., all you need to do is to add it to the where do you live? How does she go to work? When did they leave home? And why won't it work? So you don't need to do anything else. You have formulated your yes-no question correctly with the help verb. You just add your WH word, question word, to it. Except be careful with who and what questions with present and past simple tenses, because when the question is about the subject of your sentence, we no longer need to bring in this hidden help verb. So let's look at two examples. Let's have the sentence, Jenny hugged Kate. So here we have Jenny, a person, is the subject of this sentence, and also we have a person, Kate, that's now the object of this sentence. So if our question is about Kate, the object, we do need the help verb, the auxiliary verb. Who did Jenny hug? The answer, Kate. But if we ask a question about Jenny, who is the subject of the sentence, then we do not need the help verb. We go directly to who hugged Kate. Now the answer is Jenny. Let's look at another example, this time with what. This building needs maintenance. This building is the subject of the sentence. Maintenance is the object of the sentence. So if your question is about maintenance, which is the object, we do need to formulate a question. We need the help verb. What does this building need? Maintenance. But if your question is about the subject, this building, then no more question formulation, no more auxiliary or help verb. What needs maintenance? And the answer is this building. Okay, that's our revision of the formulation traps that concern the present, past, and future simple tenses. I hope that has clarified some of the questions you may have had about this topic. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. For more on this topic, click here. Remember to also check out my complete online course and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and happy studies!